Everybody come and catch the show. You want dad jokes, they got plenty of those. So relax and listen on as Dev and Kyle start the apocalypse.
Yeah.
Third time's a charm, right?
3rd, 7th, 15th, whatever we need to do, we're going to bash through all of the barriers to bring this podcast to people.
And nobody knows what the hell we're talking about.
I mean, they're going to find out when we tell them. That's exactly how this show works.
Are we going to tell them?
Sure, why not? Welcome, everybody, to the latest episode of Dev and Kyle Start the Apocalypse.
Howdy.
This is a podcast where two guys decided to see if they would become friends. And
two dads doing dad shit.
Dad shit, making a podcast. That's the joke. If you can think of a worse reason to have a podcast, just email us at devandkylesta@gmail.com. It's been a very long time again since we recorded, Dev. We're going to run out of shows if we don't get our shit together.
I don't know what we're enacting the apocalypse on ourselves.
Yeah.
We haven't started the actual apocalypse, but we're waging apocalyptic behavior on our own bodies.
Mm-hmm.
Last week's episode, I did it to myself. When we tried to record episode 10,
and then it happened to me while you were telling me the story. Yeah.
But I also did it in between recording episode 9 and trying to record episode 10. I did it to myself again. So if you've seen episode 9, which you should have if you're watching, listening, whatever.
That was entertaining, you apocalypting yourself live on camera. Loved it.
Whew.
Have you recovered
my butthole
from that?
did not hurt. Yeah, I was fine. Now, What you didn't see and what you didn't hear was the aftermath. So I told you I was going out for wings. I was going to go to B-dubs because I was craving more hot and spicy after I kind of quelled.
Absolute craziness. The idea that you thought after that chip that the next thing you needed was hot wings, you're a crazy person.
And I wanted, and I was craving it, and I was going to eat it. And the minute we walked into B-dubs, I ordered a IPA, and I took 2 sips of the IPA, and I had ordered my wings, and I was starting to get the Pavlovian reaction from smelling the wings, and now I've had my beer. And then all of a sudden, that beer hit my stomach, and the only thing I'd had to eat that day was that damn chip. So
you didn't just have like mashed potatoes to run up?
No, I didn't. I do like a weird version of intermittent fasting. So I wake up in the morning, unless it's Saturday or Sunday, I usually don't put any kind of food in my stomach until the earliest 3:30, 4 o'clock. Usually it's around 5:36.
How do you do a weird version of intermittent fasting? And by that, I mean, when you intermittent fast, you just go long periods without eating. So how do you weirdly not eat?
Because most people have like a set time. Like they begin their fast at X time and then they'll end it at X time. Mm-hmm. And they stay strict to that. They might have a cheat day, but usually this is my strict schedule. I kind of just go with what feels right.
Just the stoner version of intermittent fasting? Just whatever you feel?
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
But most of the time, I don't eat until dinner. I might have a snack around like 3:30 or 4, but I don't consume my big chunk of calories until 5:30 later. And then I'll eat until, 10 o'clock. And that's when I usually have a hard cutoff is 10 o'clock at night. No more snagging.
So you do impose the no snacking on yourself. Like you do it for a reason. This is not just you not being hungry and deciding to call it by a fashion name.
It's a bit of both. Like I've gotten to where I'm not hungry now. So I guess it's really not intermittent fasting in the true sense, because if I do get hungry, I'll go ahead and snack now. Where it used to be the first year or two that I did it, I would hard stop, do it just like a schedule, but then I kind of got lazy with it. COVID kind of changed my eating habits a little bit. I put on some more weight, but then I lost it. I'm actually down to 193, which is the lowest I've been since I did P90X.
That's because you're not eating. Let me know your diet secret. Just don't eat, and
but I eat thousands of calories when I do eat. I eat like 4,000. I eat like more than the average person supposed to consume in a day when I eat. So it's not that I'm not consuming an ass ton of calories because I eat like shit. Number one,
ass ton. And you're eating shit.
It's basically fried food, greasy shit, pizza, wings. That's Italian, Mexican. That's my food staples. Greasy packaged shit.
I'm fascinated by the idea of not eating. I know I'm not.
But yeah, so that's what I did. I didn't eat. I had coffee that morning, which is usually, I guess, by technical terms, I'm not really fasting because I usually have a latte, which has milk in it.
You have a latte what?
Go fuck yourself.
Like a lot of coffee? A lot of milk in your coffee makes a latte?
I have a latte caffeine because I usually get 4 shots of espresso in my lattes.
I also like 4 shots of espresso. I just don't always put that much milk in it. A latte's fine. I don't care. If I wasn't here to bust your balls, the show would be extra boring.
It would just be me talking to myself and nobody listening. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I think the partnership is the secret to the show. I think
it is the secret sauce.
Like, yeah, hey, hi, microphone, we're doing it. But I almost had to do this show alone because you damn near killed yourself.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I
almost killed myself doing the chip challenge. But I mean, the whole chip challenge almost killed myself because the second I had that beer and it hit my stomach, that's when a second wave of pain hit.
Did the chip make you allergic to beer? Like you've tested this after that, right?
Well, so anytime you eat spicy food, IPAs, for some reason, there's something to do on a scientific level with, like, I guess, acidity, the base, acid and base of pH level of the wing and the spicy food and the IPA, to where when you drink an IPA, it makes the heat 10 times worse.
Worse? So then what the fuck did you order an IPA for?
Well, because it had all subsided. Like, I was going into familiar territory.
Spicy wings coming in.
Yeah, and I want IPAs when I have my B-dubs. It makes the wing better.
Wait, but anyway, okay, hold on.
I had I took the sip.
Don't change. You have to explain this one to me. Because, first of all, if you understand the beer science of Dev's masochism, email us at devandkylesta@gmail.com. Second of all, the one chip challenge. Okay, great. By the way, no one can take that away from you. You made it. It's on camera. You win. You're actually saying that then when you go to the rookie leagues of B-dubs, you are purposely ordering a beer that makes it worse because the B-dubs is not bad and is not spicy enough for you.
I've just gotten so accustomed to it that it's almost like a necessity for me to have it, to where I enjoy it, if that makes sense.
This is the equivalent of Michael Jordan going to like a high school playground basketball court and saying like, oh, I'll play with you guys, but it's not hard enough for me. So why doesn't somebody come over here and hit me in the ankles with a hammer while I'm playing?
Basically, he's going to play barefoot on
glass,
broken glass.
Yep.
Yeah. And have one of his hands tied behind his back, kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That's basically me with my hot and spicy food. I like IPAs.
Okay.
To go.
I mean,
with
you're a father. You have to like
food.
IPAs. It's in the code of conduct. I also enjoy them.
If you ask some of my beer purist friends, they will say IPAs are for people that have lost their taste in good beer and don't know what good beer is.
Mm-mm.
But
no, you have bad friends. You should get new friends. That's what this podcast is about. You getting a new friend who agrees with you on IPAs.
You're supposed to agree with me on everything. That was what the contract said.
That is not true. That is not
that's
going to
the
happen.
Contract. You fucking signed it. That's what the attorney said. They both went over it.
Nope.
We agreed.
Nope.
All right. I'm going to call Johnny Depp's attorney and I will see you in court.
This is not a marriage. I did not agree to agree with you, which is also not what a marriage is, but that's okay.
But anyway.
Yeah, so you're a crazy person.
I took the fucking sip. I took a sip, 2 sips. And then once it hit my stomach, it brought back a pain that was worse than what I felt when I initially ate the chip. And I started feeling like stabbing pains in my stomach.
I would have gone to the hospital.
Krista looked at me and she was like, "Are you okay?" And I could feel sweat starting to just pour. And it wasn't just like the sweat I was sweating when I ate the chip. It was cold sweat, like in pain kind of cold sweat.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, all right, I'm good. I think I need to go to the bathroom here in a second. I think it's going to all come out the other end.
Sure.
And she was like, yeah, go do your thing, whatever. And I'm like, wait, no, this isn't that kind of pain. This is like something's off. And then I doubled over and I went, I need to go home. I need to go lay down in the fetal position until this passes, because if I keep sitting here, I feel like I'm going to die right now. And that went on for about 15 minutes or so as I sat out in the car with the air conditioner on because I couldn't even drive.
And you sent me a selfie during those 15 minutes and you looked worse than you looked during any frame of the show.
It was 10 times worse, maybe 1,000 times worse.
Now I feel bad that it's only been 2 weeks before we give this warning. Like there might be so many people trying to emulate you right now.
Don't do that. I have an extra chip and I've had people say that they wanted to try it. And I'm like, I mean, you can try it, but do not go the full hour. Number one. Number two, if you do, have lots of basic food, something that has a good base to it, like a dairy or something.
Basic bitch food, like milk.
Yeah, basic bitch food. But we'll put a base on your stomach before you eat the damn thing. Don't be an idiot like me and eat it on a completely empty stomach. And then when you're done with the challenge, after you've done your 5-10 minutes or whatever, eat something like some cheese or some ranch dressing or drink a copious amount of milk. Don't go out for wings and have a beer and think you're all Billy Badass. It ain't going to end well for you. I eat a lot of hot shit on the regular, several times a week.
Yeah.
I have never felt that kind of anguish in my life from eating spicy food. Ever.
A couple days after we recorded that, I went to work and a coworker was like, "Have you heard about this one chip thing?" And I said, "Actually, I have." He made it 6 minutes. He's like, "It's not possible." I'm like, "Actually, it is possible. I have video proof that it's possible to go the hour." He made it right to the part where you were like melting on camera for us and just reached for the milk and did it. He couldn't keep going.
I came close. In retrospect, I wish I had to just be like, all right, I ate it. Whatever.
Well, what kind of a content would that be?
It would have been good content. It could have been some humiliation content.
I'm not in this for you to humiliate yourself.
Been like, oh, you're such a pansy. You thought you could do it. I thought you ate hot food.
It's better this way. Speaking of being better.
But yeah, that I intentionally did that to myself. What happened after that?
Yeah, exactly.
A week and a half later, almost to the date of when we recorded that. Totally did not plan on that. Totally did not plan on what happened there.
So this is this next story where you also drank beer, which was also a mistake, apparently.
Well, no.
Oh,
yes and no, because at the time of the accident, I was not drunk.
You weren't?
At the time of the accident.
Sure, in the abridged version
no.
of the story, I thought for sure you had to be fucking fall down off your ass drunk.
No, that's what makes it even more embarrassing.
So you're dead sober drunk in this story.
I was damn sober. Yes. I drank during the night, but I was sober at the point of impact on the Bird Scooter.
All right. Well, I guess I have all the details wrong. So tell it to me the real way.
So I went out with
By the way, I got
to
to interrupt you again. Even though it's not the chip challenge, I just watched you put your finger in your eye and I had this like adverse reaction like, oh my God, he's going to die because
shit.
I was so worried about your personal safety last time. So I'm sorry, I interrupted the beginning of your story, but I just had to tell you that it's even still for me like a visceral reaction to watching where your hands are going. Yeah.
I gave you PTSD from you watching me eat a freaking chip. Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Anyway, so I went out with some of my buddies and we hadn't gone out with just our group of friends to have beers in several months. So it was the first night, really, guys' night out that I'd had since Holland was born. Krista decided she's going to go out with some of her friends, have a girls' night out. And I'm like, cool. We'll both, go. We got a babysitter for the night. Went out to do our thing at about 9:45, a little bit before 10. We decided we were going to hop on some bird scooters and go back to our cars because we had ridden bird scooters about a mile or so away from our cars over the course of the night as we were going to different places. And we're like, let's go home. So we hopped on scooters. We were less than a block away from our cars.
Now, for the highly international Dev and Kyle audience, the bird scooter is the one that you rent with the app and then you just ride it and then you just leave it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Bird, Lime, same.
Yep.
Both poor choices to make as an over 21-year-old with kids that has less bone density than he had when he was younger. And honestly,
you should just try drinking milk with all that spicy food. You'd have better bone density.
Well, here's the thing. I drank so much milk and I consumed so much calcium growing up. There was several times where I went in thinking I had broken bones. And after x-rays, they would go, you only have a bone bruise. It probably would have been better if you had broken the bone because this is going to hurt a lot longer and a lot worse than the broken bone.
I mean, that's a weird thing for a doctor to tell you, but all right.
Yeah. And it happened more than one time. And I was in extreme pain when it had happened. I've only broken a bone prior to this one other time, and it was 2 years ago. And it was in the same hand. It was on the same arm, my wrist, and my fifth metacarpal. So broken a bone before, know what a broken bone feels like. So I'm riding this scooter.
Okay.
Me and four of my best friends. And we are downtown Louisville.
One scooter each, right? This is not 4 or 5 adult men on one scooter.
Right. We're not being that dumb. And we had been following the laws and stayed off the sidewalk the whole trip. But then we're coming back and we made a wrong turn and went down a block the wrong way because it was an empty street and didn't realize it. And the only other way to go would be continuing to go down a wrong way to take a right to go the way we needed or to keep going straight down a wrong way. So instead, one of my friends goes, we can just hop on the sidewalk. It's not a big deal. My famous last words are, it explicitly says on the Bird, do not ride on the sidewalk. We shouldn't do this. It's a bad idea.
You're such a nerd.
Well, what happens? Not even a minute later, we hit a spot on the sidewalk and there was like a little hole about the size of like a 50-cent piece. It's a little bit bigger than a quarter.
Okay.
And my wheel hits it just right. And then there's some uneven pavement on the sidewalk. And I'm going 15 miles an hour on this thing at 193 pounds.
Which I think in metric, it's at 76 kilometers an hour. I think metric, 15 miles an hour. I think 7.6 kilometers. No, I think it's 76.
No, 70.
I'm not going to Google it, but it's 76.
Yeah, I'm not going to Google that. I know that's not right, but I'm going to go with it and say it is right.
It's not. It's like 30.
Well, we'll round it up.
Okay. So you hit this pothole, like a micro pothole.
And then just went head over heels.
Over the handlebars?
Over the handlebars.
Whoa.
And it was like instant. Couldn't stop myself. Couldn't try to jump off. Just bam. The whole back flipped up and kind of sprung me forward.
And those scooters are electric, so they're full of batteries. Like, did the scooter hit you?
I don't even know if the scooter hit me or not, honestly. It happened so fast, and I was in such instant pain and then instant adrenaline rush that all I know is I missed hitting a parked car, and I stood up and I just felt warm wetness everywhere and looked at my arm, and my left arm had a huge chunk missing out of it by the elbow, and blood was just pouring like out of a water bottle everywhere. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Here it comes, kids. I want to hear all about this. So if you don't like it, just skip like a minute. I'll put it in the show notes and make sure.
That's what's left. That's the scar.
And that's
a month
now?
Yeah, over a month. So I got stitches in that.
pink baby flesh because we're not
Oh
recording
yeah,
this
and
week.
then you can see some scars on this hand still.
Wow.
On my right hand.
So you just got road rash everywhere.
Road rash. It was all the way up my left arm from my elbow all the way up to my shoulder, just mushy on this side. But the biggest was that chunk. So I've got blood dripping everywhere from here. I look down at my left knee. There's a big, huge, just spot missing on my kneecap. Blood's just pouring out of that. And my friend goes, "Oh my God, you're bleeding." And I went, "Yeah, I see that." He's like, "You're losing a lot of blood." And I'm like, "Yeah, I need to sit down." And I'm just walking around in a circle at this point. Like, what the hell? What am I going to do? And the first thing I think of is, hey, can somebody go get my car so I don't have to walk the rest of this block to get in it?
Sure.
And they're like, "You need to go to the ER." And I went, "It's a big hole. They're not going to be able to do anything with stitches. There's nothing to like stitch up. They're probably just clean me up and super glue it if they can, probably just put gauze or something on it." And I said, same thing with my knee. And I'm like, I'm pretty good other than that. And I had some, gravel and stuff stuck in this side of my right hand. I'm like, just bring me my car around. I can drive myself. I got some towels in my car. I'll be good. So that my friends go off. They come back with our two cars, my car and the other car that we had came down in. And my buddy goes, "Nah, I'm going to drive you. You're not driving yourself home. There's no way. We really probably need to take you to the ER." And I'm like, "Just get me home. I'll get cleaned up. And then I'll probably go in the morning if I feel like I need to. If I can't get it to stop bleeding, then I'll go tonight."
International listeners, this is American for healthcare. Like blood coming out of everywhere. It's more of a pain in the ass to go to the doctor to have them stop the blood than it is to just go home and cover yourself in gauze and try think about it in the morning.
And I have good insurance.
This is what we all think, by the way, Europeans. You just it's just a pain in the ass. Not even, like you said, blessed with the good insurance, not even that big of a deal, but you just don't want to sit there and no, they're just going to "Oh, you came in here just because you're bloody, old man." That's how we all think, Europeans and everyone else who doesn't benefit, air quotes, from American healthcare. So I totally get what you're saying. You don't want to go. So for anybody questioning you, they're clearly not American.
No. And, I mean, plus it was at that point, it was almost 10:30 at night.
Yeah.
It was a full moon on a Friday night.
No.
I do not want to deal with an ER right now, especially if I can just go home and clean myself up and I'm good to go. Krista, I tell her, "Hey, I'm bleeding pretty bad. Just so you know, when I get home, don't freak out. The guys think I need to go to the ER. You might want to come down here and just get me and drive my car back." So she goes, "Nah." She got all pissed off. She goes, "You're fine. You're over exaggerating." I walk in the house. She comes down the stairs and I'm at the sink with my buddy, just using the hose from the kitchen sink, squirting off. She walks in and goes, "Oh my God, what the fuck?"
Just finds Dexter at the sink.
Yeah, she's like, "What happened?" And he tells her what happened. And I'm like, I told you I was bleeding pretty bad. And she goes, "Oh my God, there is gravel stuck all in you. You are bleeding nonstop." And I went, "Yeah, I know." And she goes, "We're going to the ER right now." And I went, "No, it's fine. I can get some super glue. We'll be good."
Yeah.
She runs upstairs, gets changed, comes down. She's like, "Get in the car." I'm like, "All right." So we start driving and we get to the ER and it is packed. Being a full moon on a Friday night,
sure,
it was packed.
They say statistically that full moons are not actually worse. People say that all the time, and they say economics professors have studied that. I don't understand. I get it. I trust the scientists. I believe that they did it. I don't understand what it is in their data that changes the very real experience that we all have going to grocery stores and ERs on a full moon on a Friday night. This is the worst place to be.
Totally different. Oh, yeah.
I guess what it must be, what I bet it is. Now, again, I have my GED in statistics. We've covered this. But I grew up working in a grocery store. It must be that sometimes you have quiet full moon nights and it balances out the average and drags the average back down. Because sometimes you won't notice it. Oh, it's a full moon. But when it goes crazy on a full moon, I swear to God, it is
Oh yeah,
just
it's
absolutely
obvious.
bananas pancakes.
Yeah, and I have several friends that I know that work or have worked in an ER, and they all say
Yeah.
it is definitely worse on a full moon. It
Yeah.
might not be every full moon, but a full moon is the worst night you will
That
have.
has to be how the science works out, that some full moons are boring, so that then statistically the weird ones disappear. Because again, like I said, I trust scientists. They studied it. They say it's not statistically more significant. Okay, sure. But we've all been there.
You've also, I don't know if you've encountered it, but I've noticed on full moons, you can tell people are acting differently. Like your interactions with just random strangers, whether it's just in their car and you in your car with them driving, or at the grocery store or at a restaurant or whatever. People act different on a full moon, and
I don't like people, so
you
I
don't click sometimes until you at night and you go, "Oh, it's a full moon." Okay, that makes sense why people were acting batshit earlier today, or this person was acting that way, or whatever.
But maybe that's confirmation bias, right? They say
It might be, yeah,
because people are batshit crazy all the time.
this is true.
So you only assign it to the full moon. You say, "Why was that person being batshit crazy?" You look up. Well, I guess it's not the moon. They must have had a different reason to be batshit crazy. So maybe that's it.
We'll go with that. Yeah.
So you're at the ER. It happens to be a non-statistically average batshit crazy full moon Friday night.
So we walk in and she's like, "It's going to be a while." And she kind of motions to the waiting room. And I'm still dripping blood at this point.
You can't even get it to stop?
No, it is still just pouring out. Because, you saw how big of a hole that was in my arm. It was just, and it was like deep, like down into the meat. You could see once she cleaned it out.
Down into the meat.
She had me sit in a wheelchair and she goes, "You need to sit down." She wheeled me over into like a little side hall because
they didn't want you for the bad press.
I think I was grossing some people out, to be honest with you. Like, just in hindsight, people were kind of like, ugh.
But people always complain when you're sitting in that ER. They always complain about not being able to go back. I would think.
Yeah.
I've never done this job, but I'm a heartless bastard. So that's probably why they don't have me work in triage at an ER. I would put the most gruesome injury out front and center. And then when people show up with like not as bad as that, just be like, you're going to be here longer than that person. Like that person's clearly worse off than you. So don't come back and ask me until that person disappears out of the waiting room. But that's only because I wouldn't want to be bothered, not because it was actually like good customer service.
And I was turning white because I was losing so much blood that I felt like I was going to pass out. So Krista's being my advocate.
All of this just adds to me like how I would run my ER. In the sim ER that I would run, I would just have you the bloodless scarecrow bird scooter victim just in the corner. You will be waiting 25 minutes longer than this guy.
If he dies, he dies. Whatever. At least he's a good show for people while they're waiting. But yeah, she kept asking how long it's going to take. And she goes, "I'm probably 45 minutes at least until you get back." So she goes back up after about 10 minutes. And the fact that I'm doing this to keep the blood from, like, I'm raising my elbow up so it's going down my back. And she comes over, she goes, "Do you have anything we can help get him cleaned up and help stop the bleeding?"
Yeah.
So she comes out and administers triage on me in the waiting room.
Sure.
And then as soon as she's done, she goes, "Yeah, I can see the meat in your kneecap and in your elbow." And then she looked at my right arm and she goes, "And that's turning yellow and green, which that's some severe bruising. You might have a broken bone. I'm going to see if I can get you back a little bit sooner." 30 seconds later, she's wheeling me back into the back. And they're like, "So what happened?" And I had to tell my story 15 different times to 15 different people. They come back, they start doing x-rays on every appendage that I have.
Top to bottom.
They were asking me all kinds
in your brain that led to you being in this situation.
Doing concussion protocol stuff. And then 4 hours later, they finally come to the conclusion, and 4 or 5 stitches in my left elbow, they come to the conclusion that I have a fractured radial head in my right arm.
Okay.
And in my knee, they said that I had a slight hairline chipped, like a chip fracture in my fibula and in my patella.
Chips and salsa.
Which they said were just potential because they couldn't 100% tell. And when they were pushing on it, I wasn't experiencing pain, but I also wasn't experiencing pain when they were pushing on my radial head either. I was experiencing when they were pushing on the underside on my ulna, like at my actual elbow on my right arm.
Radiohead was one of my favorite bands in the 90s.
Yeah. Okay, computer. Great.
So they get you cleaned up.
Get me cleaned up. And they're like, yeah, we're going to send you home. They put me in a temporary splint cast. They took this thing. It almost looked like a big roll of diapers that they put, and it kind of hardened to make like a weird like cushion splint. And they put it on the backside of my bicep, underneath my elbow, and on my forearm, so it would stabilize and put it like 90 degrees.
Like all the way around, or just like a chute?
No, just like under the backside. Yeah, kind of like a.
Was it custom molded to you?
No, they took it out of this wrapping and then they pushed it up and kind of like formed it, and it stayed there.
Okay,
but it was loose when they took it out, and then it kind of, I guess, hardened once they squeezed it.
Sure, I've experienced that.
I don't know. I was also on some really high painkillers at this time, and I'd been there for 4 hours, and it was like 3 a.m, and I'm getting kind of loopy. So
yeah, loose when they take it out, hardened when you manipulate it. Got it.
Yeah. Then they wrap me all up with this self-adhesive like ace bandage with 3 rolls of that, and then they put me in a splint, a knee immobilizer. And then they wrapped me up in all kinds of gauze and tape on my left arm. And I walked out basically like this with a sling and
like in full body traction.
Yeah. For 2 weeks, I was pretty much on my ass, immobile, could not do squat for myself.
I was like, hey, do you want to record? And you're like, yeah, I really do want to record, except it's time for daddy to take his pills and I can't follow a conversation when I do it.
It was brutal. I'm still in pain. I don't have my sling now. I can move, but I cannot stretch my arm out all the way. It's still at a...
Like you can't like straighten your elbow?
No.
Oh, is somebody going to fix that for you, or are you just stuck like that now?
I'm supposed to start rehab, but they haven't called me to schedule yet. And there is still a potential...
Rehab for the pain pills or for the
elbow? The elbow, so I can get full motion. I just, in the past couple of days, am able to touch my shoulder with this hand again. Like, I can't over here. I still can't get it down all the way. I'm getting there.
So I'm going to tell you my rehab story.
Pills or physical?
No, this is physical therapy. So I'll tell the short version of the story. I shattered my wrist so bad they put 9 screws and a plate and a little bit of cadaver bone in it to put it back together. That's my typing hand. And when I'm not podcasting, I have a computer job.
It's also your other hand too.
Yeah, strangers coming to town. But I had to go, same as you, like you can't straighten your elbow and you have so when they put my wrist back together, like I didn't have the full range of motion. And so I went to physical therapy like every single day and finished the course of physical therapy. And I only got back to, and like I'm holding this up for you, but I only got back to, instead of 90 degrees up and down, to like maybe 75 degrees on the wrist. And it wouldn't go any farther than you were doing it. So, okay. Well, a little while later, it's now September. I'm sledding. I'm in this sled and I start to like wobble at the bottom and I turn and I stick my hand out to like try and grab a little snow. I wasn't reaching. It wasn't my intention to reach deep into the snow. Like I wanted to just like grab it and just drag some snow to be a break. So I stick my hand out and I go to drag it in the snow and it stops faster than I wanted it to. And it popped. And in that moment, it was simultaneously excruciating. And then it felt so good. And in that moment, I went from only 75 degrees of motion to a full 90. And like I called the physical therapist the next day and I was like, it feels great. Like, should I come see you again? Like, I don't know. And she's like, no. What that is that you like grew scar tissue in the joint and you feel like you can't go through it. And like, it's incredibly painful to go through it. And so we usually, kind of just leave people with it. And sometimes the scar tissue breaks down or whatever. She goes, but what happened is in that piece of trauma, the scar tissue ripped and tore and was gone. And then it, like, everyone always, when we put, she said they sometimes have to do it to you on the table. Like, like instead of having 75 degrees and being able to walk out of PT, like sometimes that scar tissue grows at like 15 degrees and they know it's in there and they give you an x-ray and they know what they're doing. And they have to like break the scar tissue on purpose when you're on the table. He's like, so congratulations on, having it done. Congratulations on 90 degrees again.
Wow, you're having fun.
Have a great life.
You did it doing something that's enjoyable instead of having us hold you down and go, here, this leather strap, bite down so you don't bite through your tongue.
Like Civil War surgery.
You want a bullet or you want me to get you this here leather belt, Jimbo? That's making me want to like just keep stretching on my own.
Just keep doing it. Just keep working it out.
That's basically what my ortho told me was we're just going to keep stretching it until you get that range of motion. I had an MRI done, which that was another comedy of errors. So
an MRI was a comedy of errors. That's easy.
Well, everything was a comedy of errors. Not when you can't straighten it out. So ER tells me I have the fractured radial head and a possible fracture in my fibula and kneecap. And I go to the ortho. The ortho goes, I looked at your x-rays. You don't have any fractures at all. And I'm like, okay, well, I can't bend my knee. I know what a broken bone feels like. And my fibula is starting to, like, it's swelling up at the top of the head of my fibula and near my kneecap. It's extremely painful to walk on. Extremely. And evidently somebody spiked my sweet tea. And I'm having the same kind of feeling in my elbow over here too. So she takes the splint temporary cast thing off and she goes, I don't know why they did this to you. They shouldn't have put any kind of splint or cast on you. And then she starts to twist and grab and squeeze all around my elbow and my arm. And I'm grabbing the table, white knuckling, and almost slapped, like seriously, almost just instinctively slapped her to like stop because she was putting so much pain on me.
Oh.
And I finally went, fuck, you have got to stop. I'm sorry. I don't usually say that in a professional setting, but you have got to fucking stop. And she goes, yeah, there's no fracture, but I think there might be some small and soft tissue damage in your elbow. So I'm going to send you for an MRI. I don't want you using a sling anymore. I want you to keep stretching that out and doing rotation. She schedules me an MRI. I go to the MRI. I walk in and the girl goes, yeah, I need you to lay on your stomach and I need you to straighten your arm out completely flat with your palm up and put it over your head. And then put it into this little chamber part that they're going to use to remove the arm. Yeah. At that point, it felt like they were going to, because I was in so much pain and I was in one of the smaller MRI machines and I've still got stitches in this arm. Oh. So I'm trying to put pressure on this arm, my left arm, to keep it off this one that I have laying up there, stay comfortable and stay still through the whole MRI. I was sweating in pain. Like I was sweating like I was during the one chip challenge.
You should have brought a camera down to the MRI machine. That would have been top-notch content. Just you and a GoPro just dying for us to enjoy.
And I made it about 15 or so minutes. And then I hit the emergency squeeze ball. And she was like, are you okay? And I said, I've got to get out. I'm in so much pain. And when I stood up, the table was wet from my sweat. All the scrubs that I was wearing were completely just covered in sweat.
I thought emergency squeeze ball was a euphemism. That was
I wish that would have been more enjoyable.
I was going to say, if you were worried about your language in a professional setting, I think they would have preferred a lot of F-bombs.
I've seen some videos in those kind of settings, but I don't think they were real.
I don't think they're real. No. Mm-mm. I don't think they let a camera crew in by the MRI, which is probably also would have been a problem for our content.
The tech goes, I've got, I think, enough imaging that I can send it over and they should be able to see what they need to see. And I'm like, cool. So I leave, go home. 4 days later, still haven't heard back from the ortho. So I'm like, hey, if you guys looked at my MRI, they send me a message on my chart and say, have you gone to get your MRI?
Oh my God.
They said, well, they told us that you canceled and didn't show up. And I went, nope, I definitely was there. I've felt every second of it while I was there. And they're like, well, give us some time. We'll figure it out. A week goes by. And finally I get a call from the manager at the MRI place. He's like, yeah, our tech, she misinformed you and she didn't get any imaging that she needed. So they didn't send any over. They thought that you were going to reschedule and come back in. I'm like, she didn't tell me that. She told me she had enough. She was sending it over. I was good to go. He's like, now we need you to come back in. I'm like, well, I've gone to see a second ortho because I thought that my first ortho had something to do with this transaction and getting lost, and it wasn't all on you guys. So he was going to do it at his facility in-house and do an MRI this coming Monday. I don't know if I really want to come back and go through with you guys. He goes, no, I'm going to make sure this gets done properly, give you your film. You will be good to go. You'll be in and out in under 20 minutes. We will make sure that you are comfortable and not in a bad position.
Absolutely code for they know how bad they fucked up the first time.
Oh, yeah. So I schedule it for 6:45.
By the way, they've already billed the insurance. That's what happened in that story.
No, they hadn't. That's the thing.
No, they had, because like that's how it got fucked up, because they knew they were up for like some fucking fraud. If
because I called insurance when I went to the second ortho, and they said, you have an approval to go to the MRI that was for like 2 weeks ago. And I said, yeah. And I told them what happened. And I said, they've lost it. And they were like, well, okay, they haven't actually sent us a bill for one. So you can just go back there if you want and get it redone. Or if your other ortho wants to do it in-house, just send in a request and we'll cancel this one and do the other one over. And I was like, oh, okay. So they had not billed anything to insurance. Yeah.
I'm shocked that someone would be that nice to you when they didn't think there was a crime on the line.
He tells me to come in. I get there and he's like, get here at 6 o'clock for your 6:45. And I'm like, all right, cool. Get there. 6:45 rolls around. They still haven't called me back. I'm like, all right. 7:30 rolls around. She finally comes out and she goes, hey, all right, come back. I walk back there. There's still a lady in the MRI. She hasn't even gotten that lady out. And she goes, I'm so sorry. I've had to scan her like 4 or 5 times. She keeps moving. And I went, my appointment was for an hour ago almost.
Yeah.
I was like, how much longer is she going to take? She's like, oh, like 3 minutes or so. 3 minutes goes by. And then she goes, hey, it's going to be like 9 more minutes if you can just stay still. And I went, 9 more minutes? I'm like, I got to go. I got a wife and kids at home. I've been here for going on almost 2 hours now because I got here early. I got to reschedule. She goes, if you just be patient and wait. I'm like, look, no, you all screwed up from the get-go on this.
You're
Peace
done.
out. I'm gone.
See ya. Yeah. You can bring the MRI machine to my house if you feel that strongly about it.
Yeah. I said, I'll be back here in the morning. Tell me what time to be here. And it needs to be before 10 o'clock. She goes, can you be here at 10? And I was like, are you going to get me in as soon as I walk in here and I don't have to wait? And she goes, yes. And I said, I'm holding you to that. I'll be back. So I leave. I come back the next morning. In and out. They got me. Things are great. Sending the imaging over as soon as we get it processed here, about 8 minutes. And I was like, send it to both orthos because I wanted to go for a second opinion just in case. And that ortho also told me that radiology had reviewed my x-rays and he looked at them and I did not have any fractures anywhere. So I'm like, all right, cool. They go over. Monday comes around, nothing. Tuesday, nothing. And I'm like, if they lost these again, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to burn that place down.
You should just cut your arm off if they lost it again. That would mean that your arm was like a vampire and unimageable.
Oh, yeah. And the second tech was 10 times better. She had me laying to where I was comfortable and I could actually make it through it. I also had a little bit more range of motion at that point because it had been 2 weeks.
Well, yeah, it's all healed now.
So MRI goes and they're like, oh, we finally sent it over at 5 this morning on Tuesday. Okay. So waiting around for a result. Finally, Wednesday, I get a call from both orthos saying, you have a confirmed radial head fracture. And I was like, that's funny. You both told me I didn't. And then I went, that makes me think that something is wrong with my knee and my fibula, which I knew it was because I'm in pain. I know something's wrong. I can't freaking walk. The first ortho sends me to another ortho who specializes in elbows and arms. So I go to her. She looks at it and she was like, yeah, I don't know why they couldn't see that you have an obvious radial head fracture in the x-ray. And she shows me and circle. I'm like, this is the first time I've actually even seen the imaging. Nobody has shown me any of my imaging.
Well, what do you need to see them for, plebeian? You don't know what your bones look like. They went to school for a very long time.
And circle and show and point and tell me what's going on in my body. So I know. I've watched enough ER. I know what to look at.
Have I ever told you the story about finding out the gender of my second child?
No.
That hasn't made the show yet? Okay.
No.
So it's because we're looking at pictures of stuff. Okay. So with my first kid, we didn't find out. And day of birth, they're like, hey, do you want to know? And so I stood up and the baby comes out. Wait, okay, sorry. Hold on. There's another quick story to that one too. So he was a C-section baby. And, spoiler alert, you get to see the insides of your wife for a C-section. But I stand up. The doctor, they go, okay, do you want to tell her, whether or not it's a boy or girl? I say, okay, great. So the baby comes out, but he comes out and the doctor goes, oh, and puts him back in for a second while I'm standing there watching. And the surgery tech reaches in, they didn't even have to communicate. They're a very good team, clearly. The tech reaches in with two fingers and pops the cord off. And so I asked later, what happened? And she said, that's why, because my wife was in labor for 28 hours.
Holy shit.
Before we finally gave up and went to the C-section.
Good Lord.
Yeah. Oh yeah. She's a saint. But she said what it was is that the cord was on a seatbelt. So it wasn't wrapped around his neck. He was never in danger. But when he was trying to come out and when the doctor tried to take him out, he was just hung up on the cord, like a seatbelt was holding him in there. And so she pulled him out halfway. The doctor reaches in, the tech reaches in, flicks the cord off the shoulder, and then out the baby comes. Okay, great. Hey, it's a boy. So then we thought that was a very fun experience. We wanted to be surprised for the second child. Also, bringing it back to unskilled people reading radiology charts and reports. We go to the ultrasound, the very first one, hey, this is where there's a baby in there. Yeah, it's 12 or 16 weeks, when it's no longer a jelly bean. The lady was very professional, not a single thing that she could have done better. She squirts the gel on and the wand is incoming. She has not yet touched the wand. And in this particular office, the output is on a 45-inch TV on the wall, as well as on her little monitor. So I can watch the TV and I don't have to be around crowding her on the other side. She brings it down and she goes, do you guys want to know the sex of the baby? And you can hear, she touches it and brings it right back up that fast. And in that moment, I saw exactly what she saw without trying, without anything. When she put the wand on, my second child was sitting cross-legged, and it was just an upshot, just Twig and berries on full display. There was nothing she could have done. And it was just okay, well, I guess why don't you just put that back on and confirm that we're having a boy? She's like, I'm so sorry. I'm dude, I've been here. This is I've seen people struggle to even find the baby. Never mind find the gender of the baby. It was clear as day, 2 legs, 2 berries, 1 twig, right in front of me. It's just that's just immediately when I think of when they're unskilled chart readers. I'm well, sometimes it's obvious.
Yeah, so sometimes it's all right, if you couldn't see that, I mean, come on. Granted, when I looked at it, I would not have known for sure that I had a fracture.
Sure.
Either in any of the places. She was looking at the outside edge and she goes, look, it kind of looks like a little jagged spot right here going, doot.
That's what the college is for.
Yeah, I can see it now that you pointed out.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, yeah, there's a fracture there. That's what it means, because the outside, your bone should be smooth there.
Mm-hmm.
There's obviously, it's not repaired because there's no scar tissue or anything that's showing up inside. I'm like, okay. And then she showed me the MRI and she goes, and the reason that the radiology did not see that you had one for sure, and she pointed out, she said, it's probably the same issue with your knee and your fibula, is because you hit and broke these so hard and then it impacted and pushed it back together. She's like, so you have a fracture. And then she showed me in the MRI and she goes, and it goes all the way through your radial head. It's popped it off, snapped it, and then pushed it right back on, and then pushed it together.
Isn't that like when you hit the training baseball and it spins all the way around and just comes back to normal? That's what you did?
Yeah.
Nice.
And she said, that's probably what happened with your fibula too. She goes, the great thing about though, with your fibula, she goes, it seems like you're walking pretty normal now. And I was like, yeah, I've injured this left knee so much with baseball and golf and basketball that it's normal to feel some kind of weird discomfort in it, to where I feel like I'm back to normal now with that.
Did you break it? I was going to say, did you break it so hard that you healed it?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I did, because she goes, it's not a weight bearing bone. She was like, if it was your other bone, then if she's like, if it was your femur, you would have been, she's like, you wouldn't be walking even with a tiny little chip.
That's that they say a femur's harder than concrete.
Yeah. She's like, if you broke that, we would be, and you would be like air cast at least, not putting any kind of pressure on it. She's like, with that, you can put pressure on it. And as long as it's not all the way through it, it's not displaced, which it wasn't, no compound fractures. She's like, you're good. And we're so far into it now that I'm not even worried about that. If you're not worried about it, she's like, if it keeps giving you discomfort, come back in. I'll order MRI. We'll look at it and see. But she goes, I don't think from looking at the x-ray that you've got any kind of fragments floating around. And she goes, and with your arm, you definitely don't. So we're good on that front. But I'm not 100% out of the clear. I might have to have a pin put in through the top to keep that cap on there. So that's awesome.
Weeks of bullshit, all of this together for you to find out that honestly, the American healthcare system healed you, right? With the bureaucracy. Just if you had not gone to the ER, you would have died. But because you did go and you waited, and then you went to the next one and you waited, and then you went to the next place and you waited. And ultimately they all just looked at you and did nothing. You got better on your own. And that's the secret to getting better, is to just
do nothing.
Just get better.
Yeah.
Just drink your milk.
Because even when I got my stitches removed and I went into immediate care, the doctor there, she said, I don't know why in the world they stitched you up, because there's nothing. They were like pulling pieces together from spots. She goes, it's a big chunk. It's a crater. And you're trying to like pull chunks of a crater together. If you got a big hole and you pull one side and the other side, you're still going to have gaps on this side. So they were trying to like, does it make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, it makes perfect sense. Yeah. They're like, there's just not enough skin together.
Yeah. You're taking a hole instead of a tear or a gash. It's not like taking a canyon and taking each side of the canyon and just pushing it back together and then making it tight. You pull one side over here and this side, you still got gaps that you're trying to pull. And she was like, they would have been better off just taking something and bandaging you up.
Just put dirt in there.
And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. She goes, it's going to make a really cool scar though. I'm like, hey, that's positive. Now that I'm 38 and don't have anybody to impress with, hey, check out this cool scar.
Cool scars are really sort of the domain of, I mean, it's just for picking up chicks. And since you're done doing that, you just show them to your kids, I guess. That's what I do with my scars.
I'll have a cool story.
Every couple of years, they've forgotten.
Yeah, it'll be a story to tell.
What else is life for except just collecting stories to tell on your podcast?
And we can't leave out trying to record episode 10 and getting through like 8 minutes of it. And then I thought that my story, when I was describing all the blood and gore, made you nauseous or something.
I'm glad I had the opportunity to prove to you that I could make it through the story and that it was, in fact, just food poisoning that made me run off camera in the 8 minutes into the show last time. So we were trying to record this show before we started the show and everything was going great. And I'm looking at the screen and I got suddenly violently ill and ran away, which, I mean, maybe I shouldn't have told people that my own show made me violently ill, but I think I made it through the first 9 episodes fine, and it was good to go. Speaking of food poisoning,
Please laugh.
speaking of food poisoning, there are 2 cannibals, and they're eating a clown. And the first one says to the other one, hey, does this taste funny to you?
Oldie but a goodie. And so appropriate, too, with pop culture right now.
What's that?
With Netflix's one of their top viewed shows right now. Has to deal with the cannibal.
I honestly have been living under a rock. What are you talking about? Is there a cannibal show on Netflix right now?
Yeah, like the world's most famous cannibal ever.
Oh, Dahmer?
Yeah.
Oh, they did a show about him? I have no idea. I have not noticed this at all.
Yeah. And it has, I cannot think of his name, but the guy from American Horror Story, and he played Quicksilver in
which one?
Days of Future Past.
Oh, the Future Past one. WandaVision, that guy? Yeah, okay. I like that guy.
I can't think of his name, but you know what I'm talking about. He's a good actor. Yeah, he plays Dahmer. I haven't watched it.
A chameleon.
Yeah, I haven't watched it. I know enough about what happened and seeing actual clips of the trial from news footage that I don't want to relive it and see it Hollywood and glamorized.
Sure. We've discussed how my wife is a huge true crime fan, and we were talking the other day, and I observed that I think that lawyers are the original hipsters of true crime, and they're there before the crimes get cool.
Yeah,
that's just my observation. That's the only reason to go to law school is to be there first.
I think Johnny Cochran would agree if he were alive.
Yeah. Bonus joke. Well, this one's kind of a visual joke, so it's not a good joke. Do you know what Johnny Cochran would look like if he were alive today?
Alive?
So it's a visual joke. I just pantomimed being inside of a coffin and scrabbling to get out. So for anybody out there who loves dead celebrity jokes, you can just tell that one anytime you want to.
What if he were cremated, though?
I mean, he would still look like a person trying to get out of somewhere if he were alive.
Oh, this is true.
Yeah, this goes back to our frozen people conversation from many, many conversations ago.
Frozen peas.
Frozen peas? Have you been putting those on your Radiohead album?
No, they told me to ice it after I left the ER, and I tried to ice it, but with all the tape and crap that was on it, I couldn't feel it.
With all the broken bones that you had that you didn't know.
So I was like, screw it. I can't feel it. And then once they sent me home after she took it off at the first ortho, which actually she wasn't even an ortho. She was an APRN.
She's just the secretary. She's just sitting at the desk. No, I'm sorry, sir. We've thrown away your MRIs and you take that shit off and get out of here. She's just answering the phone for $8 an hour.
I have no problem seeing an APRN for any kind of medical issue.
An APRN is a bee scientist. An APRN,
other than a specialty, like I went to an orthopedic surgeon to have someone look. I mean, I understand you're an APRN at the ortho, so you're basically like right there behind the ortho. You're basically an ortho without being an ortho. But
I don't know what that means.
I'd rather see an APRN at like immediate care, or because I've got a cold, or I've got the flu, or I need some stitches. Not, hey, what's going on with this potentially life-altering injury that I have?
I don't know what you're talking about. And every time you say APRN, I just think that you must be talking about some like newfangled grocery, like meal delivery service, like aprn.io. Like that would be all just delivering like apron and delivering shit free to your house. But they don't have enough money at the startup for vowels.
It's like a physician's assistant.
Oh,
They're a physician light. They're not full physician.
Diet doctor, not Diet Dr. Pepper, just Diet Doctor.
Yeah, they know everything that the doctor knows. They just haven't gone to as much schooling.
Okay, like nurses in the 60s when they weren't allowed to go to medical school and it was just women.
Basically.
Maybe even nurses today, I think is how that goes.
Just as knowledgeable, but not as well-versed. I'm showing my complete lack of knowledge when it comes to the medical community and their titles.
That's okay. You can be completely uninformed on this show. That's what I do.
Yeah, but that's my role is to know shit and correct you. And then if I don't know shit, to Google it. But I still haven't gotten to where I can type comfortably well.
You can't type yet?
I can type. It's not comfortable.
Oh, okay.
It still feels weird to turn my right hand to put it on a keyboard and then do this because it's putting slight movements up here on that radial head, like the muscle around it to where it feels weird. But like I can write okay kind of now. Like
only okay? That's the only word you can write now?
Yeah, just okay.
Just over and over again? Like
I can't even write my name. I just write okay. Okay.
It's less creepy than just red rum all the time.
Yeah. Okay.
Speaking of creepy, I was at a children's birthday party the other day and I saw a 10-year-old boy eat the cupcake, but he didn't take the wrapper off. He just ate it.
I've seen that happen before. I've accidentally done that before.
Accidentally?
Yeah, like not eating the whole thing, but taking a bite thinking that there wasn't a wrapper on it.
No. He bit down and like ripped away paper.
And just kept going.
So that there was then like a shark chunk out of the paper. And I was like, oh my God, he just ate that paper and he didn't even know. And then he like pushed the paper back up and did it again to like get the paper. Like this child is a psychopath.
That's a feral
I should have
child.
found out that kid's name so that then when Netflix makes a special about him in 12 years, I'll say, I remember when he was eating cupcakes with the wrapper and I could have gotten my shot to be on Netflix. And like, imagine the boost in ratings in 12 years that Netflix was get by booking me on one of their true crime shows.
Well, it's going to be 20 years probably.
It'll just say like Kyle, who started the apocalypse with Dev, weighs in on the Cupcake Killer.
Because he probably won't start getting good at his crimes until he's in his mid-20s. And then it'll take maybe a year or two to catch him. And then you'll have to go through the trial.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'll have to go through making all kinds of negotiations for contracts to get the rights to the story. So probably
Sure.
like 20, 25 years.
You're trying to say I'll be dead?
And Netflix is going to be gone by then. By then, it's going to be our network.
Yeah. Oh, we can book him as a true crime podcast on
Our network.
the Dev and Kyle Start the Apocalypse Network, Apocalypse Studios.
Or maybe another network that we partner with that is still our network, just not Netflix. Maybe not our network that we
Like Hulu.
own directly.
We buy Hulu, and that's how we'll
Yeah.
do it. We'll just Hulu and woohoo all the way to the bank.
Or we might have shares of interest in it, just partners. Or we might get bought out. We don't know. There's a lot of potential. There's a lot of potential out there in the ether.
I'll never sell, Dev. If you're out there and you're shorting this podcast, I'll never sell.
I will sell out in a heartbeat. For the right amount of zeros, I will sell out in a heartbeat.
Another one of our patrons joined, and I said, you can be here on the ground floor, right? And you can say, I like the podcast before they sold out. And they said, never sell out. And I said, I got bad news for you. You're subscribing to the wrong podcast if you don't want them to sell out.
Yeah. We'll stay true to our laurels, but we'll get paid for it.
Yeah, exactly right. Like, what was it last episode? We said for $100 million, we were gonna get a double tag team on Ted Billionaires. So that's fine. Whatever we need to do to pay the bills.
Exactly.
Well, as enjoyable as hearing about your near-death experiences have been, Dev.
And your food poisoning.
Oh my God. This is it. I just wanted to power through this one. We made it through episode 10. So there's only one left thing. Just to tell everybody that I've been Kyle.
I've been Dev.
And we have attempted to start the apocalypse. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Spicy shits.
Dev and Kyle Start the Apocalypse is brought to you every other week with a full archive available at devandkyle.com. The Apocalypse theme and other music in the show is written and performed by Chase Noseworthy. He's Chase Noseworthy on YouTube or at NoseworthyChase on Twitter. All graphic design for Dev and Kyle Start the Apocalypse has been created by Dead Vision. Find her work on Twitter and Insta at XDADOTTER and book her immense talents at xdadotter.com. Audio engineering provided by Cassandra Umsong. She can make you sound even better than Dev and Kyle because you'll provide much better raw materials. Get in touch with her on Twitter at Coffee with Coom. That's coffee with COUM. Dev and Kyle support artists and creatives of all types. Exposure is for film. Artists need compensation. If you're interested in becoming an apocalypto to help keep supporting all of the artists who make Dev and Kyle sound passably professional, please consider becoming a sustaining patron at patreon.com/devandkyle. Show notes, transcripts, and any other information from this episode should be available at devandkyle.com if Dev and or Kyle did their job. Fingers crossed. Finally, deeply and sincerely, Dev and Kyle think that you are a wonderful person who deserves love and compassion. We hope our small gift of what we consider interesting or entertaining has made your day even the tiniest bit better. Thank you for liking or subscribing in your favorite podcast app. And if you think others may want to know about this show, consider leaving a review in that same podcast app. It really helps us spread the word. Thank you.